Today I'm joined by Elaine Penhaul from Lemon and Lime Interiors. Elaine has got so much experience in such a variety of different areas that this can be nothing other than really fascinating as a conversation. We talk about the psychology of selling and we talk about interior design and staging. I do hope you enjoy. Elaine Penhaul.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us
It's
along
a
the
pleasure.
towpath on this absolutely stunning day, which we didn't think was going to happen.
No, it's
so we're
glorious.
very lucky with the weather. So why don't you introduce yourself? Who are you? Where do you come from? And what's your company, etc.?
Okay,
How should we know you?
I'm Elaine Penhaul. I'm the founder of Lemon and Lime Interiors, and we basically get premium property ready for sale so
Okay.
that it sells. We're maximising sales by making sure that the presentation is spot on, and the aim then is to achieve the highest price in the fastest possible time for the sellers, and therefore also help the agents.
Okay, so that's a staging company, yeah?
So it's the Americans refer to it as home staging. We use home staging because it's the Google search term.
Right,
For a
okay.
very long time, we referred to it as professional property presentation.
Okay.
Because effectively, that's what we do.
That's what it is, isn't it? It's a bit
And
Ronseal,
staging,
it says it
to
on the
some
tin
extent,
then, isn't it?
yeah, to some extent, staging limits it, and people's expectation is that we will only put furniture into vacant properties, for example. But actually, what we do encompasses far more than that, including landscaping, exterior
Oh, wow,
decoration,
okay.
interior decoration.
So all
Carpets,
in any,
anything.
all in any really.
Anything that will actually help to maximise the
So
sale.
everything from a rundown wreck to a nice hello there, to a nice new build property that hasn't had a bit
Yeah.
of staging, or isn't presented properly, can have that.
It can be
done.
anything from a Georgian rectory where the family has lived for 40 years, kids have grown up there, moved on, and the parents are
A
perhaps
nice home,
ready.
but not quite
Yeah,
presented.
beautiful. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. But it was last decorated in the late 80s or early 90s, and as we all do,
We've
it's
seen plenty of
accumulated
those. Yeah.
stuff. You know, the barns are all full, the loft's full, all of those things, which of course has all got to be moved during the course of the.
So you declutter
change. So we
and you replace furniture with
declutter.
with
Where we have to replace furniture in an occupied property, but often we'll work with the owner's own things for two reasons. One, because on a practical level, it's much easier to live with your own stuff than somebody else's pristine.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want your dirty, wet Labrador sleeping on somebody else's cream sofa that you've just swapped out in the kitchen. you
no
know.
quite. So if they're living in that house, they begin to live with that furniture ultimately.
So, well, generally they're living with their own furniture, and what we've done is to declutter, to put things into a place where it's going to photograph or video better, and then at that point we're perhaps accessorising in a slightly different
see.
way,
Okay, that
so that
makes
we're
sense.
trying to appeal to a different buyer demographic than the seller.
So rather than just the person that's selling it, you're trying to reposition the property to the buyer rather than selling it for the seller.
Exactly.
Okay,
And
that
you'll
makes
know
sense.
from your experience that very often the buyer is one, and in some cases 2 generations younger.
Yes.
So they're at a very different life stage, probably the life stage that the seller was at
when they bought
bought.
it. Yeah.
But of course, you know, a lot happens in those 20, 30, 40 years, and bringing up a
Fashion-wise
family
and style and-
interior styles
Yeah.
and, you know, all of those things. And we just accumulate so much
So what are we
stuff.
seeing at the moment then in terms of trends? That's sort of a question I wasn't going to ask, but what are we, just curiosity then.
Well, it's
What-
quite interesting actually, and we're just about this week we're accessorising was described to me as a sub-penthouse property.
A sub-penthouse?
A sub-penthouse. So I think it's the one on the next floor down.
Okay.
In London, and it will be a high-end rental. Essentially.
Right, okay.
And what we're doing there is working with what the guys renovating it have done. And of course, the trends in where we're looking for a rental for young professionals in London, in a great location, is what's now called colour drenching, which which essentially means that you're painting the walls, the ceiling, the woodwork, everything the same colour.
Oh, wow.
Now, of course,
Okay.
what we're doing at the same time in the big country properties is undoing the 80s version of colour drenching, where everybody went with, Farrow and Ball reading room red,
yes,
and their walls and their
Terracotta-less
ceilings and their, yes.
Yeah, racing green and
so
navy.
on the one hand, in the countryside, we're undoing that, and on the other hand, in
the city,
in
you're actually
city,
applying that.
We're applying that.
That's really
but
interesting,
the modern version of it, if you like. So it really is interesting, because those trends, and this is why we use a lot of data. I know you work with Simon and the Unchained guys, and we use via them, we've learned to really tap into all the geodemographic data that's available about both buyers and sellers in a particular postcode, so that we can say, well, look, the buyer for this, we can say with authority, the buyer for this is likely to be
So
of
this is
profile.
using Experian mosaics and what have you.
Yeah, exactly. And we will then go to the interiors magazines, the trends, Elle Decoration, whatever it is, and find out what that demographic are
what they're actually excited by.
In terms
That's
of
really
trends. And then we can apply the right trends. And we're not doing it, if it's an occupied property particularly, we can't do that to the nth degree. But we can apply,
You can do some
so we
influences,
might be
perhaps.
switching, recently we've switched rugs out for those of natural materials, the kind of the jute rugs, for example, that will bring in a lot of texture through the soft furnishings and so on. A lot of greenery,
So it's not just
that's
how
been
it
very
looks, it's how it
fashionable.
feels when you arrive.
Yeah,
Then. So
it's
that.
that minute that you walk through the door, isn't it? That real emotional connection. Wow, I love this.
Yeah.
And that's what we're creating. That's
We were
what
asked a
we're
question
trying
on that
to
recently,
create.
I think, weren't we?
Yes.
The okay, so that here's the early sidewinder then. AI. Let's get it out of the way
AI.
quickly. So
Go for it.
So what do you do that I can't just stick it into a ChatGPT powered, or I don't know, insert name of Toby Martin clever tool here, that can come up with a beautifully staged Street have just done their AI staging tool, or whatever it's not AI staging tool, it's a Photoshop.
Heather and I were talking about catfishing.
This is it. So what is it that a company like Lemon and Lime can do that we can't just press a button on a computer and do?
Well, you can absolutely press a button on a computer and do, and the AI and the virtual staging. The virtual staging has been around for a long time, which is generally done by a designer taking real furniture and putting it into
CGI type
photos.
stuff,
That CGI stuff's been around for a long time. The AI version is getting increasingly better. It no longer puts dining tables in with 3 legs, for example, which it did at an early stage. It was very primitive.
Yeah.
And of course, all
There's
of
furniture
that,
version of people with 6 fingers on their hands.
yeah,
that, sort of
that
thing,
kind of thing, yeah. And all of that is great to stop people scrolling on their phone, to say, oh, actually, this looks amazing, I want to go and see this.
Yeah.
But of course then, if the reality of what people are then stepping into that house, expecting to see these beautiful photographs, the reality is either completely empty, which is where AI is used most frequently at the moment, or it's a very occupied, very tired home, for example.
Because a photograph can present something a certain way, can't it? But
yeah, we can do anything.
Or an image can present
I will
something
do
a
it
certain
for,
way,
I did it for a French property that we were asked to look at, and I AI'd their photos with our furniture for them to show them what we could do.
Yeah.
But then when somebody walks in, we talk about selling homes. We're not selling houses. We're not selling properties. We're not selling, to a very large extent, we're not selling to investors. What we're selling to is real people who want real homes for their family, whatever their family constitutes. And there's so much emotion tied up with that. And if people are walking into something and are immediately feeling, and that sense
Deflated
of
by
disappointment,
walking, that sort of instant,
and they're going,
the wall
I
of
thought this was going
disappointment
to be
hitting you.
great, and there's nothing here. It's white walls and grey carpets, because that's what developers do. Let's face it, they've done for a very long time.
Yeah.
And if that's what their reality is,
Well, it's starting the journey on a negative, isn't it? Really,
they're not suddenly going to say, "I want to put an asking price offer in on this property." Whereas if they walk in and it looks exactly like they were expecting, or better. And they get really excited, dashing around the house to look at all the little corners, all the little, what we would call a vignette. But, you've created all those little lifestyle places within the
staging
house.
I understand.
Yeah, just to speak to them. Look, if you lived here, this is how you could live. Then suddenly they get excited about it. Suddenly, you know, they're videoing or taking photos.
Well, they're able to
on
look
their
back at the
phone.
video then and actually see what's there rather than what could be there and may or may not be. And
So they want very often, and you know what we experience is that people want the affirmation of their friends and family when they go into a home that they've said to everybody, look, we're going to see this at the weekend. When they actually get there, their mates have said, well, I tell you what, send us a picture while you're there. We'll tell you whether you should buy it or not.
Yeah.
You know, all of that conversation goes on way away from estate agents or home sellers. And then suddenly people get there and they're going, oh, I just need this to send this to my mum. I need this to send this to my best mate. Well, if the best mate is coming back and going, wow, you need to go for that instantly, then suddenly
It
you've
takes
got
that
somebody that's
conversation.
really engaged
And bought into it,
in the purchase process, isn't it?
So it doesn't come for free.
No.
So
of course
there's
not.
obviously a
No.
cost attached to this. So,
Yeah, sure.
so and obviously you can't give a quote because it's bespoke to the house, so how much
Yeah.
they need doing,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
But obviously it's going to be an investment of some description.
Yeah.
What and I would imagine it's, you know, you're taking someone's furniture, so it's not going to be, you know, a light touch. It's going to be a proper investment. So, and the impact of that is what are we hoping to achieve by doing
So
that
what we're
investment?
hoping to achieve then, and as you know, we've got a lot of data on this. I'm a mathematician by background. I'm not an interior designer. And we've collected a lot of data right from the very beginning of the business. And what we can evidence through that is that on average, the properties that we have been involved with over the last 9 years, and it's 9 years because we worked with 20EA to get the data and they had 9
Okay.
years of comparable
Excellent.
data. So it's 9 years of data, and on average, the properties that we have staged have sold at 103%. Now that's been in good
Okay.
markets, bad markets, you know, averaged out across those. On average, 20EA says that properties have sold across that period at 96.8% of their guide
Right,
price.
okay, so there's a good
Therefore,
6-ish
we've got
percent.
six and a bit percent to play with. So if staging costs anything from a few £100s for a zhuzh up before the photos, right the way through to 1.5% would be a normal kind of average for where we're
That's
fully
interesting.
furnishing.
Okay, so you've
where
got
we're
a
fully
formula then.
furnishing.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. We don't apply it quite like that, but you know, it's about 1.5% if we're fully furnishing a property.
Yeah.
That 1.5% against a potential of 6%
Well, the return,
difference
yeah, it becomes an investment.
is a no-brainer, isn't it?
Good morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, so, oh, hello. That was close, almost ended up in the canal then, tripping over a sausage dog. Okay, so there we go. So investment-wise, well, you know, at that point, as we have been schooled by our learned friend, Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes, yes,
there's something about data not having a voice or something like that.
So I think data does
Have
have a voice, not
or
an
opinion or
opinion.
something. That's it, yeah, the wrong way around, we get chastised for that. So we'll have to
You
edit
will,
that
you
out.
will.
But at that point, it becomes irrefutable, doesn't it?
Well, you would imagine so, wouldn't you? I think often the problem comes where, if it's new build, let's take new builds for example that need fully furnishing, often developers haven't really thought hard about a marketing cost of their property or their site before they start, and what they believe is their marketing cost is the fee that they're going to pay to the estate agent.
Yes.
And of course this is it's essentially an upfront marketing cost in much the same way as professional photography or videography
Yeah.
might be charged these days, and it's a similar thing. There's no point getting a professional photographer in or a videographer in because if the house is empty, you know, and I've said many times, you know, on my social media, for example, that you can't tell whether a property is 200,000 or 2 million if it's empty. You just can't tell because
it's a wall
one
and some
empty
floors and
bedroom
a
looks
ceiling
much
and some
like
windows
another
and-
empty bedroom. So creating that value within that, but developers don't always build it in from day one. And homeowners, because it's a relatively new concept in the UK, we live like we live. There's still a lot, particularly in the premium end of the market, where people have bought and sold in the 80s, 90s, for example,
Yeah.
where actually what we bought was something to put money on. that the mentality of those sellers is still that younger people are coming in to put money on to do a project, for example. And of course, these days, people aren't, that's not what they're willing to do. What they want to buy is the Instagram version of a family home.
Yeah, and you're helping
and
present
there's a
that.
big gap between the seller.
So the agent really
and
has
the
to sell
buyer.
that
So
mindset, really.
So the agent really has to educate, in my view, the seller that people no longer buy in the way that they bought, and
which
therefore,
was PDF brochures printed out, or nice glossy brochures, which showed current.
Yeah,
but,
and even then, I'm of that generation. We bought the worst house we possibly could in the best location we possibly could, and that was how we made our money. But these days
they don't see it like that, do they?
Well, you don't see it like that, and also the way that house prices at the moment, barely track inflation, and therefore it's got to be something that they're going to love,
be incentivised and bought into
at
the moment of seeing it.
Okay. Rather than seeing it as future wealth.
That's really interesting.
Which is going to be taxed to death anyway.
Well, yeah, who knows? 48 hours before the budget, so we won't touch on that today, because by the time this is done, it'll all be over. So hopefully it'll all be forgotten about as well. So so let's just move on from that, because that's really interesting. Thank you for sort of giving us a little insight into the sort of paradigm that we should have in terms of the staging. So tell us about your journey into starting Lemon and Lime, because this is not your thing.
It's not what I set out to do.
No. So how on earth did Elaine Penhaul suddenly find herself with a home staging in inverted commas company?
It's interesting, isn't it? I don't know. If I had to go back to that precise moment, what would I say?
What was the moment that made you suddenly realise, when you suddenly sat there and went, hang on a minute, I'm actually doing this, aren't I? What happened?
The point where my accountant said to me, because I was running it under my investment company, I had some investment property, which was my financial settlement from my divorce in kind of 2008, 2009. I've got no idea how to run essentially do property management, so I had to learn pretty damn quick because I've got 4 kids to feed. And so kind of learned how to do that. And was doing that for 3 or 4 years. Eventually people were starting to, I was doing it for my own and getting good rentals.
So you saw the proof of concept
in a very,
there.
very awful market. A friend of mine then moved to Budapest with her family, their husband's job, and she rented out her property for a little while. I happened to drive past it at the point where they'd decided to sell, and it was like a Sleeping Beauty house. The garden was growing up around it, and it was. So I phoned her and said, "Look, you can't possibly
we need to do
sell
something
it
about
like
this."
this." Yeah, I said, "Well, I can't come back. You'll have to sort it." So I kind of gathered together my kids and their student friends in the holidays, and we went in and did some painting and moved a few bits of furniture in. And estate agents then started coming to me locally, because that one sold really well for about 60 grand more than anybody thought in the winter of 2010, 2011, when you'll remember the market was pretty awful.
It was still recovering itself from a pretty
still
nasty
recovering
period,
from a really bad spell, and then agents just gradually started coming to me and saying, "Elaine, could you come
what you did there?
Could you just come and tell my seller that I can't sell their house looking like this?" And I'm going, "Well, why can't you?" They said, "Well, because I don't want to upset them. I don't want to damage the instruction. So could you do it?"
So give advice.
Outsource the blame. I was a business coach. That was my main source of income at that point. I was so I thought, well, I like nice houses. I'd been married to a developer for a long time. We'd done a lot of renovating, and so I would go in and just say, "You can't possibly sell your house looking like this," and then we would sort it out in the estate.
So they blame you, not the agent.
Yeah, but that was okay, because I knew what I was. I knew what I was talking about. I was independent,
and you've proven it.
I was proving it, and they got a better sale on it. So I guess the point where I started to do it deliberately was kind of early 2015, when my accountant said to me, "Right, stop," and I'm going, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're running this trading business under your investment business, and they're taxed differently. So if you're going to carry on doing this, then you've got to do it on purpose, or you've got to stop, because I can't do your tax returns anymore on this
Two
basis.
different styles
It's
of
just,
business. Yeah,
because
okay.
by that time I was earning enough for him to start worrying about it. So
Right, okay.
that was the point where I had to make a big decision and separate the two
And
businesses.
that's where you
So,
led you to here now. Okay.
yeah.
So let's talk prior to that then. So you're saying that business coaching was your primary source of income before you had a
At that
business
point.
doing that? Tell us
Yes,
about
I had a
that.
business doing that. My degree's in maths. I then started training as an actuary, but I wasn't very good at being an actuary because you had to sit still, and I'm not very good at sitting still. And I could sail, and at that point there were sailing centres were being set up in the Mediterranean so that you could go sailing in the summer
Right,
in much
okay.
the same way that you can go skiing in the winter.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So I had this fabulous moment where I went in and said to my boss, who it was very unusual for a woman to get an actuarial job at that point anyway.
Okay.
So I was kind of a bit unusual in what I was doing, and went in and said to my boss, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to, I've got another job. And he thought I was in Scotland at that point. He thought I was going home to Norfolk and I was going to go and work for Norwich Union.
Right.
And I said, no, actually, I'm going to go to Greece and I'm going to set up a sailing centre. And the poor guy just went absolutely white and sat down.
Well, yeah, it was a slight departure from
He had
what
no
you were-
idea what I was talking about,
Yeah.
which was quite funny. And I then spent a number of years
Okay.
sailing for work.
Wow. What made you stop doing that? Why are you not still doing it?
Why was it's quite hard once you have kids.
Oh, yeah,
Once you
that's
settle
fair,
down and have
yeah.
kids. And I was working. My last job was in Falmouth. I was yachting out of Falmouth.
Right, okay.
And it's quite hard to live on 30-footer boat and get married and have kids and have a normal life.
As
Really.
much as it sounds romantic.
As much as it sounds
We've all seen
romantic.
the movies. It sounds fun,
yeah.
doesn't it? But
And it's cold and wet in the winter,
yeah.
so yeah.
Oh, that's,
So
okay.
I
That's fair enough.
stopped.
You can't argue with that.
No, had kids. Took my sailing coaching because at that point I was coaching at quite a high level. I was training instructors, helping set up centres, that kind of thing, and took all that coaching experience into business coaching because it was the time when there was a lot of interest in taking sports coaching concepts from sports coaching into coaching teams in business. It was very early
Yeah.
days of that, and I had a lot of experience.
when was
with
this?
coaching? So this was, it was early stages of the kids, so kind of late 90s, early 2000s
Okay.
then, and took all of that into business. In the meantime, while the kids were very tiny, I'd done my teacher training because they were hurling money at maths graduates like it was going out of
Right,
fashion
okay.
to go and do teaching. So I did that and did my master's in educational psychology. So took all of that
Wow.
and retrained essentially as business coach, and ended up doing that for a number of years in corporates and a lot of work in police forces, which was great because you were looking at culture change from
In a
things
very
like
different...
command and
Yeah,
control to
yeah.
using coaching as a first line management style, which was great.
And it was a novel experience for them at the time,
Mm.
so you were teaching something
Yeah.
really new, I should imagine.
Yeah, teaching something really new.
yeah.
It was a bit early. If I was going to look back on that, I would say that we were probably 10 years too early. It has been a bit the kind of story of my life. The businesses that I've fallen into have been 10 years earlier than
Oh, that's
they
interesting.
really kind of
Yeah.
begin to take off. Staging is the same.
Yeah.
But I knew it with staging.
That
So
you
I
could see it
knew
coming.
I could
Well,
see
you'd
it
done it.
coming.
Yeah.
I could see it coming, and always we said, look, nobody else in this country knows what they're doing. So
Yeah.
we're going to make the blueprint. We'll be 5 years ahead of anybody else
Yeah.
before they start to.
And that's
before they
exactly
start
what
to
you've done, isn't
catch
it?
them. That's
Yeah.
exactly what we've done. Yeah.
Okay, so let's pick back up on that then. So we're business coaching is where we've just finished up. So talk us through that, because I think obviously interior design, etc. Oh, sorry, interior design. Forgive me. And staging and the Lemon and Lime is very much your life now, but underpinning all of that is business coaching, isn't it? So you're now currently doing is it a license or a franchise model for Lemon?
Franchise, yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
a franchise
franchise,
model,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're able to lean into that experience that you've had in helping people set up their own businesses under the Lemon and Lime banner.
Yeah.
So
completely.
talk us through that.
I think that what business coaching does is two things which are applicable to what we do now, what I do now. One is it enables you to have a conversation in a way that is future focused. So, for example, with homeowners, my first conversation will always be, tell me what this move is about for you.
Okay.
Because if you can tap into their motivations, then you can tap into the next bit that you can help them with. I think in the franchise model, first of all, we've made the blueprint for what staging is in this country right now to a very large extent. And we've probably made all the mistakes along the way. And therefore, not only am I saying to franchisees as they're coming in, what is it about a franchise that you think will suit you? What are you bringing to it? What do you want from it? What's your, we look at exit plans right from day one, because I think it's important to build a business with the exit in mind. And then, of course, we can do what most staging businesses haven't yet done, even internationally, is look at systems and processes and how we build those. In particular, staging is it's much the most complex business I've ever run in terms of cash flow, because there's a very big...
I bet there's a lot of money tied up in
very,
fixed
very
assets,
big demand for furniture when we're busy. So the busier you are, then the more, so you've got more money coming in, but at the same time, you've got more money going out in buying your assets and transport and people costs to actually get the stuff from A to B. And
so logistics
and all your logistics and things. Essentially, we're a logistics business. And being able to train and then coach. So training I would separate out as this is how to do it. These are the processes to use. This is how to run a 3-month cash flow, for example. This is how to set up your CRM.
So the building blocks.
All of the building blocks would come into the training. And I think that's really important. And then my experience from business coaching suggests that you can train people all you like. You can give them absolutely the best training in the world, but it won't be embedded unless you follow up. Because what happens to all of us, you'll know it, going away from a conference, wow, I've got some amazing ideas, I've got some great thinking, I really need to go and do this. And then the phone rings and you get back in bed, or one of your staff comes to you and says, I've got this problem, and you get embedded back into the day-to-day, and all of those good intentions go out of the window. And I think it's the same when you're setting up a business, that you have all of this training and you're going to do this, and then the phone rings and somebody says, could you just come and have a look at this property? And then you're there, well where am I going to get the furniture? How am I going to get it? And all kinds of other things take over. So we follow up all of the training with ongoing coaching, so weekly calls, with quarterly check-ins, with all of those things, in order to ensure that people are able to embed their learning and really take giant steps forward, rather than kind of shuffling forwards 2 steps and then back 1.
So that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because they come to you thinking, I want to make a house look beautiful. But actually, that's only a very small part of what they're doing, isn't it? And isn't that the same with us in terms of agency? I want to sell beautiful houses. Actually, it's not about houses.
No.
It's nothing to do with houses. The house is the vehicle, but actually the journey is the emotion, isn't it? It's the personal journey that we take people on.
So the interiors, absolutely, and I've described it as such before, absolutely the vehicle for us helping the clients that we have to move on to the next stage of their life quickly, with as much money in their pocket as they possibly can have, so that they can do whatever it is they want to do, whether that's go travelling, pay for the kids through uni, pay for the care of an elderly parent, whatever it is, all of those things.
Okay, so on that then, let's explore that, because I want to... I think emotion is very much a word with you I want to explore, because with your experience that you've had over the years that you've been coaching people, emotion's been a core part of your skill set, isn't it? In terms of tapping into people's emotions and making sure that they're taken into account, etc. So just talk us, I suppose it's the psychology of selling, isn't it, really? Talk us around that. Give us some interesting things to sort of mull and get our teeth into, sort of our mental
That's a
teeth
big
into.
question.
It is a little, isn't it? As I'm saying it, I'm thinking I'm not making your life easier, am I?
No, that for me is why it's so important to start every conversation with a home seller, so that we've got two main audiences, if you like. One, and there are routes to market. One is our estate agents, and the other one is our home sellers. And sometimes the home sellers come to us via an estate agent. You will have seen a stat that I released a couple of weeks ago, that these days about 52% of our clients come to us without an estate agent.
Which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah, it used to be less than 1% at the beginning of the business, and now staging is more common.
Where do
Agents
they come
are
from?
a bit more.
Where
They find us. They're looking.
So they've suddenly become aware that staging
yes,
is a thing.
Yes, they've become aware that staging is a thing. That a lot of agents never talk about in any depth about presentation when they go to do a market appraisal or the first conversation with a potential seller. And it's certainly in the premium market, the sellers are generally well-educated, professional people who are aware
they're not unaware of what's going on.
No, they're aware of what's going on in the world. And even if they're at a slightly later life stage and perhaps aren't quite as aware themselves, then they have children, of adult children usually, of an age that will talk to them about
now
this.
seeing
that
this
and how
is a thing,
important this is. And of course, there's a lot of programmes out there. I was lucky enough to be interviewed by Phil Spencer in the summer, and he was talking about the programme called Secret Agent that he did, which was exactly that, but that was years ago. And there's been more Selling Sunset Buying,
there's plenty of it. It's part of the language, isn't it?
It's part of the language.
It's part of the process of taking. Well, of course you're going to be doing it. You see all these parties and these things where these houses have been completely emptied and then refilled, and they look completely different.
Yeah, and we don't do it in quite that way. I don't think the UK market's quite ready for that yet. But people are aware that presentation is important in maximising their sale, and they will look for us. And the other part of our audience is estate agents. So we spend a lot of time in the emotional stuff, both with estate agents and with home sellers. The home seller, the first conversation is always, so tell me what's behind your move. Where are you going? How long have you been here? What are you concerned about in how you're going to achieve your move? And then with estate agents, generally, particularly with the rise of the self-employed models, particularly in the kind of premium end of the market, which is what we're talking about, then as somebody's stepping into that world, then very often the conversation is, well, what do you want your agency to look like? What do you as an owner of an agency want it to look like? What individually do your agents want their businesses to look like? In the same way that we have
because it's a direct reflection of them, isn't it? Really?
Because it's a direct reflection of them. What are they trying to bring to all of this? And and I was saying to somebody the other day, you can start off with the business goal for somebody, but always it comes back to emotion. It always comes back to self-belief, to what they think they can achieve, to, there's so much caught up with that. And that's what I spent my coaching life unpicking with people. And it really is just unpicking and then tapping into where you can best support them and help them to move forward.
So let's talk about, we operate in the prime space as Chartwell Noble, and we have people who are business owners who it's Chartwell Noble that they're trading under, but it's their thing to do what they wish with.
Yeah.
Now, similarly with other agencies out there, the Finding Countries, the By Designs, etc. Those people who are operating not on their own, because they're not, they're supported. They have a network or a structure or a platform around them, but obviously they've got to work out, haven't they? They've got to work out what's
moving you in
so shadow, but they've got to work out what's how to get themselves maybe motivated or driven, and obviously they want to achieve something, but what's the first thing that you would guide people who are embarking on the journey of self-employment, which is starting to become a little bit of a word that perhaps isn't as exciting as it once was. It's seen through squinted eyes a little bit cynically as, oh, self-employment, anyone can do it now, so where's my thing? But we'll touch on that later. But what would you guide people towards with that coaching experience that you've got in terms of how to start and how to get yourself motivated and pursue things? Because you say stick a flag in the ground or big number or whatever it is. How would you go about doing that?
I always start where somebody's talking about a business goal, for example, then I will always say to them at the front end of that, what do you want your life to look like in 10 years' time? Mm-hmm. And when we say life, people will start to talk about business and what they're going to do that will get them there. But actually I'm going, no, I want to know what your life looks like at that point. Okay. You know, tell me about family, tell me about friends, tell me about what you do outside work, because those things have to marry together, and it's very easy. And I've been self-employed all my life, and I would argue I'm very much of my generation in terms of you just work until you fall over, and then you go, oh, why did I fall over? And I think people don't want the same thing now. But you've got to start out thinking about the whole picture, and then once you've got the whole picture, you can then scale back. Okay, so in 5 years, so in 2 years, in 6 months. So what do you need to do today that's going to get you there? And that might be, I need a really great CRM so that I spend less time scribbling notes and then not able to find them the next day. It might be, I need to hire myself a bookkeeper because I'm really never going to be good at that side of things. So there's a whole lot of things that all marry into that, but you have to start with
it's what you want,
and
what are the things that are going to stop me getting there. What can I do about making sure that those gaps are plugged, or those...
It's not, there's a lot of, and businesses spend a lot of time plugging gaps, plugging weaknesses. And honestly, from my experience, I think it's a waste of time.
Okay, that's
I
interesting.
think much more powerful to say, okay, well, what's going to get you there? Tell me about your strengths. Tell me about what you're really good at. Okay, fabulous. So now how can we leverage those better? What else do you need that's going to support you? So for example, if you say to me, Elaine, what are you really good at in business? What I'm really good at is going out and talking to people and drinking a lot of coffee and just kind of chatting about what we do and how we do it and that kind of thing. What I'm really, really, really useless at is any level of detail about anything. So I kind of know what needs to be done, but you asked me to do the detail. So my first hire was, and I knew all of that because my first hire in this business, but I'd run businesses all my life by this point, and it was quite late career when I started this. My first hire was somebody to do the admin, essentially, because I knew damn well that I could have a great business, but it would all fall down on the fact that it was built on absolute sand or bits of paper I was standing in my office going, oh my God, where's that bit? Where's so-and-so's phone number?
So important to be self-aware, isn't
it? Which is coaching, isn't it? There are two principles of coaching. The first one is to create self-awareness. And the second one is to create responsibility. And in creating that responsibility, you've got your self-awareness, now you have to do something about it.
Just acknowledgement is only half the battle, isn't it? So what are I suppose that's the one question, the big question then, isn't it? So what's important to you? But then what would you encourage people to ask themselves on a daily, weekly, and I suppose, we're coming up to the year end here now, on a yearly basis, quarterly or yearly basis, what are the key questions to make sure that the dial is moving forward, that we have I suppose accountability and awareness, self-awareness?
So there are 3 questions. There are always 3 questions. One is what's gone well, and that might be what have I done well, what have my team done well, what opportunities have we had in the business that have enabled us to move forward. So what's gone well?
So what's gone well? Yep.
What hasn't gone well?
Okay.
And being really, really brutally honest about that, and what the what the causes were of that. You know, where did I just make a complete cock up so that actually it was my fault, it all fell apart.
Okay.
And then the third one, of course, is, and what am I going to do differently
Okay, so
going forwards?
what's gone well,
What have I learned?
what
am I going
hasn't,
to do?
and what am I going to do?
differently? Yeah.
What am I going to do to make
Yeah.
sure it doesn't happen again,
Yeah.
and to improve it next time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on a daily basis, I suppose it's
On a daily basis.
what can
same
I do?
thing.
What am I going to do?
Same thing.
Yeah.
What did I set out to do in the morning?
Yeah.
What's gone well? You know, and I think that bit that you're prefacing all of this on a daily basis, on an annual basis, whatever it is, with what is it that you're setting out to do? What are you trying to achieve? What do you want to achieve? And of course, you know, for all of us, it's like when you know, not so much when you're walking on a towpath, you're kind of a bit limited, but if you set out on any journey, there are always kind of little, you know, you can go off on that in that direction,
Yeah.
preferably not that direction, but you
Definitely
can
not
go
that
off in, you know, you can go off in different directions.
Yeah.
Other opportunities come up, and the question then, of course, is this getting me closer to my end goal? Does this opportunity enhance my end goal, or am I just going off down a rabbit hole because I can?
Which is going to
Because
take
there
me
are
away from it.
So many rabbit holes that you can go down, and they, of course, then either slow down progress towards your end goal or derail you completely. So
Which
it's
does
important to
happen.
kind of know. Yeah, of course it does. It happens to all of us.
Like
you know.
somebody who's a business coach who
Who
goes
then
on to
ends up
start
staging.
to
You know, story of my life. I can talk about this with
So you're
great
coaching people to
authority
not
because
do
I
what
know.
you've done. Love it. Brilliant.
I think what it did give me the opportunity to do was when I started this business was to say, okay, right, I've run businesses all my life. I've had a great time. I've met some really interesting people. I've had some really interesting opportunities and a lot of fun along the way. If I'm going to start this business deliberately now, then I don't want to be in it forever.
No.
But how am I going to start it?
But I suppose
knowing
giving
that?
yourself the opportunity to franchise out what you're doing now gives you,
Yeah.
it takes you back a step, doesn't it, really, to where you were before, to your core skill set of everything you spent many, many years building to help people about something you're passionate about.
Yeah. So now I'm, you know, but at the same time, and I spoke to Gareth Samples actually before I set up the franchising business, and one of the things he said to me is, Elaine, you know, you're not moving out of the business that you're already doing. You're just giving yourself another business to run.
Well, you're almost building a
And it's
niche
so true,
within your business, aren't
we're
you?
building,
To focus. Yeah.
And the franchising is a different business. You know, being a franchise owner is different to doing the ops side of a staging business, for
Yeah.
example.
That's been really interesting. Thank you for all of that. And I think there's some really interesting points in there. I think it is a new, the beautiful kingfisher just flew off there.
Oh, wow.
The whole world that we're seeing shifting now, moving estate agents into business ownership as individuals, with EXP having hundreds and hundreds, and the Agency UK having hundreds and hundreds, and IAD, and you know, companies like ours and others that are similar, and there has to be a mindset shift, doesn't there?
Yeah.
In terms of from, again, are we allowed to use entrepreneurship anymore? Is that too much risk taking and chances, or is that somebody business ownership or self-employed, whatever you want to call it? What is the fundamental mindset shift of somebody who has been an estate agent who is now turning into a business owner?
Oh, now
that's a big question, but what has to be the main thing that is that shift?
I think it's a really interesting question because it's a concept I talk about a lot and have talked about a lot in various businesses across my life, because I don't think it's so much a shift from being an estate agent in an employed role to being a business owner in your own right. I think fundamentally, if you're somebody who's been salaried, to then stepping out on your own and becoming a business owner, whatever the industry, I don't think it matters what the industry is. There's a fundamental, huge shift that many, many, many people fail to plan for and simply don't make, because you have to have a risk profile that allows you to do that.
Yeah.
And that's not, it's not universal. It's not that common. So, for example, a lot of the coaching that I did, the business coaching that I did, was underpinned. The first thing that I would do with a new, somebody new that I was about to start coaching, was emotional intelligence profiling. And for example, when I was coaching in police forces, there's on one of the profiling tools, the one that I used most, there's a whole section on what's called impulse control, and it includes kind of things like impulse control and reality testing, and just generally how you process naturally. So for a police officer, for a senior police officer, what we were looking for was somebody with very high impulse control, very good reality testing. In other words, they weren't, if something kicked off, then
they could slow everything down.
Become aware of think about it. They weren't going to act spontaneously. They were going to consider things. And you would imagine that that's a really, really good quality to have. And of course, in that role, it was a really good quality to have.
Yeah.
However, if you were to profile many successful entrepreneurs, let's use that word for a moment, but successful entrepreneurs, their impulse control and their reality testing would both be very low on the scale, because what you need to run a business is
that ability
to jump.
Yeah.
If there's an opportunity, you're going to jump. You're not going to step back and go, oh no, I just need a week to think about it, because actually if an opportunity is there, you need to jump. Your reality testing,
so the quick decisions,
quick decision
identifying
making.
opportunity.
Yes, and sometimes if your reality testing is too high, then you're limited by what's gone on in the past, what's happened previously, what other people do.
Okay.
And of course, as a successful business owner, you're not wanting to be limited by what other people do. I wouldn't have a business now if I was limited by what other people did or thought. I've got to be ready to say, well, nobody else has done it yet, but that's where I'm going.
So be agile,
whole
basically.
Profile, your whole emotional intelligence profile is different from somebody who's salaried in, different roles have different things. Those are fairly extreme.
Yeah.
But it really is an underpinning thing, and in understanding, so going back to that self-awareness, you have to fundamentally have that self-awareness first. And I think what means that people drop out of self-employed agency, for example, or are not particularly good at it and have to take a second job, for example, or
Amazon delivery,
whatever it is.
That sort of thing, yeah.
And I don't just mean in the runway in that first year, because of course, then that's a financial thing. But, later on, it just doesn't really take off. Often it's because mentally they haven't made that shift from being ready to take opportunities to jump, to go, and as opposed to making sure that the world is safe around them. And neither of those things are wrong. It's just making sure that you're in the right
position, isn't it?
Just making sure that you're in the right role.
See, that's really interesting. And I'm glad we've got to that, because I think where we've heard a lot of, we've had many hugely talented and worldly people up and down this towpath over the course of the last 12 months. And it's been 12 months because this coat's back out again because it's cold again. But where they're the Stephen Browns of this world, and the Simon Gates and the Simon Ledbetter and Matt Gigg, everybody has used the word consistency. And it's about routine, and it's about making sure that it's about just pick your path, stick to it, do this. But actually what you're saying, you've got to go back further than that.
There's some fundamental
You've got to have your brain wired in
Yeah.
a certain way to be a successful business person.
Yes.
You can go through habits, can't you? But actually, to be truly successful, and that's really interesting, because I put a post out there the other day about the fact that it just isn't for everybody, this thing. And actually, dare I say, this is my controversial opinion, so forgive me, I'm going off, I'm going my own rabbit hole. But we hear so many people go, anybody can do it. I can make you £100,000 a year, and you can do this and you can do that, and you're going to be brilliant at this.
Yeah.
The churn rate in those businesses is pretty high though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because of that?
Yeah. I think
it's not because of the support they provide, though, is it? It's because of the mindset.
No, often the support is really good. The business model is really good. People, these days, people aren't buying into flaky business models. There's some really strong business models out there, depending on which part of the market you want to be in, depending on where what you want out of your business. But fundamentally, it comes back to this self-awareness piece. And I think it's very easy to look at other people who've done it, who are successful, and to think, and they'll go, your friends will go, rah, 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 come on, of course you can do it, it'll be absolutely fine. Your sponsor or, whatever will be saying to you, come on, of course you can do it. But fundamentally, you have to reflect on whether you're ready for the utter craziness of not being salaried.
Yeah.
Because one minute you're up here and you're on this super high because it's all absolutely amazing, and the next minute you're crashed and it's
Panic.
all doom and gloom and panic, and it's a very, very lonely place. And you have to be A, prepared for that, and B, have a kind of a mindset and almost a fundamental temperament that says, whatever, I'll deal with it. Because if you're somebody that goes with the highs and goes with the lows, it must be utterly exhausting.
So we've got an agent that works with us, Vicky. She's just pulling up trees. She's just exceptional. And she's got a corporate background, an independent background, so she's just sort of on both sides of the tracks, if you like.
Yeah.
And she's building a business or a book through absolute dogged determination, belief and faith. And actually, she would have you believe it's that she's not a good business person, that she is just, she's just doing what she knows and relentlessly applying it and trusting us and the conversations and just rinse, repeat. I would argue, based on what you've just said, that actually she's the embodiment of a decent business person, because actually what she's doing is every day she's going, well, if I do this, then that'll work. Well, actually, no, if I need to go and do that, because that's... And she's not forgetting what she's doing. She's not zigzagging. I've worked with business owners who relentlessly zigzag and never actually get anywhere. But actually, she's hopscotching to where she needs to get to. And then she stops, pauses and looks around and she goes, bloody hell, this is quite good, this. I've built something quite special, because I'm not leaping in from something to something else. I'm actually building momentum as I go. Yeah. And that's what you're talking about, isn't it?
Yes, and I think that goes back to the other people that you've talked to on the podcast about the consistency, because it is then recognising what it is that you're doing well, and for me that's underpinned by she's not getting derailed. So on a day where, or the last few months, for example, where the market at premium end has been quite challenging, and she's not getting derailed by that, that actually she's still doing the groundwork, still doing ploughing on.
The basics.
Still doing the basics and doing those really well, knowing that they will pay off. But temperamentally, she's not getting into a headspace that goes, into panic or meltdown mode, that she can
inevitably there'll be days where you wake up and go, oh crap, this is...
But in a salaried job, you can do that too.
You can. Well, how many times have we sat there and gone, I don't think I'm going to hit a target? And then, are you more at risk then? Or are you more at risk when you know that actually I'm in control of everything I'm doing here?
I think it's... It really is.
Okay.
Difficult, isn't
it? That was really interesting. Thank you for that. I think that's such an insight, and it's such a slightly different way to how we've been considering things before.
I don't think everybody's suited for self-employment.
Completely agree.
I'm lucky. I'm a self-employed daughter and self-employed granddaughter. My children are self-employed.
So it's,
that's just what we do.
The world,
That's the expectation. That's the environment that we grow up in, and that my kids have grown up in.
I do have a bit of a problem with those who go out there and try and sell self-employment as a thing for everybody. I think it's highly irresponsible, frankly.
I think it's irresponsible.
There are some people out there who need to be protected from that, and far be it from me to be within my power. But
I think there's probably interesting. Maybe that's my retirement career of actually doing some coaching around that with those people who are considering it. Okay, well, let's sit down and see if
decide whether it is for you or not.
Decide whether it's for you or not.
I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that's where we're going with this conversation. Who knows?
Well, who knows?
Maybe I've led you down a garden path, perhaps.
Yet another retirement career.
Oh God, your poor accountant.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so let's go straight. Let's go into our controversial opinion then, Elaine. So, what is your controversial opinion that you don't share very often about the property industry or the estate agency world? That you wouldn't share very often. Do you have one?
I think, well, it's a little bit. You and I spoke earlier when we were having coffee back in your office that as a business coach, I always believed that I had 12 months, and I would say to the organisations I was working with, look, we've got 12 months before I start to carry the same political, with a small p, baggage that you carry. In other words, that my questioning, my expectations of what's possible become limited by the same parameters that you have already from having been here for the last 5, 10, 15 years, whatever. And I don't know whether my controversial opinions about estate agency are now more moderate than they were when I set out, because I'm now, I've been within this industry for 10 years now, we're in our 11th year as a business, or whether actually gradually, agency is improving, or whether I simply meet and choose to meet with agents who are great. I'm surrounding myself.
Sure.
We talked about echo chambers, but you're surrounding yourself by an echo chamber. I think generally agents, if you'd asked me, 10 years ago, for example, I would go, oh my goodness, and I still remember Kate, who's my sales director, you've met Kate, coming in when she first started working for me, and she had been an agent in premium property for a very long time, 25 years, and she came into my office going, well, of course, we just do this and we just do this. And then she scanned, 3 days in, she was scanning through Rightmove, and she's going, oh my goodness, why are they putting properties on like this? Why are they doing this? Why can't they do this? And I'm going, you really are poacher turned gamekeeper very quickly. Because I think that, historically in the UK, we have sold, we've traded bricks and mortar, and increasingly we're trading lifestyle, and I think that there hasn't really been a great mindset shift within agency to that. People talk about it, they pay lip service to that, but I think really people are still, there's a lot of people around who still are expecting to sell bricks and mortar. I think estate agents don't understand clearly enough that the biggest part of their job is to educate the home sellers in particular and educate their buyers. So for example, let me take an example. I was at a conference last year, and I was one of the speakers, and another one of the speakers who was an agent came up to me and said, oh, Elaine, you'll never guess. I went out to do a market appraisal the other day, and the sellers didn't even know what a portal is. Can you believe that? And I said to him, well,
why would they?
When did they last sell their house? Oh, about 25 years ago. Well, Rightmove only came into being in 2000. So why would they know what a portal is? And he had entirely forgotten, because he talks about portals day in, day out. He had entirely forgotten.
Is there a mild contempt for the vendor there, or is that perhaps unfair? Is that probably a bit too
I don't know
harsh,
whether it was a mild contempt. It was just a complete disconnect.
Interesting.
Between. And it's very easy, isn't it?
It's a lack of empathy
in your
there, isn't
world.
there?
Well, in your world, as an estate agent, you're talking about portals, you're talking about valuations, you're talking about conveyancing, you're talking about AML, you're talking about all of this stuff day in, day out. You know that properties are listed on Instagram, for example, or on Facebook, and that you do, you'll do a coming soon video, or you'll do, you'll do drone shots, you'll do all of this stuff. But of course, if somebody hasn't sold their home,
they don't know what that is.
20 or 30
they don't even know
years,
whether it's necessary.
Why would they know anything about it? I mean, I did write the second book, How to Sell Your House, to address exactly that gap. But I think, so probably my biggest controversial opinion is that there is a huge gap between what sellers know and what estate agents believe that sellers know.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Estate agents often, not always, often don't understand clearly enough how important their role is as educators.
Bridging that knowledge.
Yeah, of just simply spending time educating their sellers as to how we're going to go about this. How we're going to
because to us it's common sense.
To the next stage of your life.
Okay.
Because as a seller, there's an awful lot of emotion caught up with it, as we identified earlier, whether that's excitement or whether it's dread, and maybe a mixture of both at different times through the process.
Yeah.
And many agents will support that. That's great. But at the outset, the simple education piece of, this is what a portal looks like. This is where we need to maximise your listing for
what's
AI
basics
search,
to us, isn't it? To
all
them,
the stuff for basics.
Yeah.
Just isn't
It's
there.
a different language to them, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a different language.
Well, lovely. Thank you for that, Elaine. I think that was really interesting, and I think there's lots to sink our teeth into there, isn't there? And just your whole journey of how you've got to where you've got to now. But I think there's some very definite lessons that I know that we'll revisit, and I suspect there's going to be plenty of questions that come off the back of that. So thank you so much, and
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.